Mr. President, we come to this Security Council to lodge a complaint, one of the most serious complaints possible. We are here to alert this Council to a series of actions that threaten not only peace and security in our nation, but also of the entire Latin American and Caribbean region. Mr. President, for years, the government of the United States has been conducting a propaganda and disinformation campaign against our country. At present, it is undertaking an escalating deployment of military forces mere miles from Venezuelan coasts. The military escalation involves the offensive mobilization of more than 10,000 troops, combat aircraft, missile destroyers and cruisers, assault troops, assets used in special operations and in covert missions, and even a nuclear submarine. The belligerent action and rhetoric of the U.S. government objectively point to the fact that we are facing a situation in which it is rational to anticipate that in the very short term an armed attack is to be perpetrated against Venezuela. That's why we're here, because this Security Council has the necessary means to prevent further worsening of the situation. We are here to avert the commission of an international crime. The Charter of the United Nations provides all of us here in this chamber with the means needed not only to confirm the existence of a threat, but also to be able to preserve regional and international peace and security. Should this body possess the political will to fulfill its mandate, it can use these means. The world is watching you today. Let's not betray those of us who placed our trust in the Security Council, because those of us who signed up to the UN Charter. President, the United States narrative has feet of clay. It bears no relation to reality. And indeed, since January this year, this government has sought to convince the world that Venezuelans right now, today, are carrying out an invasion on the territory of this country, that the presence of Venezuelans due to their nationality alone is contrary to U.S. security, and that they are all terrorists. This is the criminalization of the entire Venezuelan people. Through this disinformation campaign, the United States government is attacking Venezuelans within and outside U.S. territory. It considers them a threat, foreign enemies, and just a few days ago it declared that it was in the midst of an alleged non-international armed conflict with the sole aim of having carte blanche to wage war against Venezuela. All of this has been reaffirmed with impunity by the U.S. government without a shred of evidence. Peace in the region is in grave danger on the basis of a fiction promoted by a warmongering government eager to attack an entire nation and its people. Mr. President, today we are all seeing the first tragic consequences of this reality that our region is facing. The United States government has recognized that thousands of kilometers from its own coasts, it has bombed 4 small vessels in the Caribbean, killing 21 unarmed civilians, which never posed any threat to national security. The United States government conceals its crimes under the guise of self-defense. In so doing, it murders civilians without providing information as to their identity, without proving the nature of the cargo aboard the vessels, and without providing any evidence on the imminent nature of an armed attack against U.S. forces. This is not self-defense. These are extrajudicial killings. There is a killer roaming in the Caribbean, one that is seeking excuses to manufacture a conflict, to attack, to manipulate the principle of self-defense, and he wants to kill more. There are procedures established around the world to combat drugs without killing the suspects. The United States is the only government that proclaims the principle shoot first and check later. Who could believe that this large-scale military escalation in the Caribbean is truly aimed at combating drugs trafficking? The truth is that the United States government, as has been confirmed by international media, has already issued a secret order to authorize the use of military force in foreign territory with the pretext of a false war against drugs trafficking. At the same time, the CIA has also been authorized to conduct clandestine operations across Latin America and the Caribbean. All points to a new hour of aggression in our region. President, the conflict doesn't exist. It is being manufactured by the United States. And the reason is as follows. While it is true that this country is facing a tragedy created by drug addiction, which is very regrettable, and one on which we stand ready to cooperate to address this grave public health situation, there is another dangerous addiction that remains unspoken here. This is the addiction to oil. The United States is desperate to control all of the sources of oil around the world, and it believes that Venezuelan oil belongs to it. Its desperate addiction, therefore, leads it to violate all norms of international law. We've seen this in Iraq, in Syria, in Libya, and in Afghanistan. But now is the time to prevent a new war, a war on Venezuela. If Venezuela did not have oil, the imminent military threat would not exist. The plan is clear. It's an attempt once again to undertake an operation that's already failed, which is to overthrow the legitimate and constitutional president of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela, Nicolas Maduro Moros, in order to install a puppet regime and turn our country into a colony. Without presenting any evidence, the government of the United States is appointing itself both judge and executioner against an entire people. International law, however, also applies to the United States. It isn't an exceptional country. It is sitting around this table because it committed to upholding the United Nations Charter. Venezuela comes here today to demand that the government of the United States uphold its international obligations. The necessary means to resolve this situation do exist. Our country has always been and will always stand ready to engage in dialogue to overcome politically and diplomatically any difficulty to protect our region as a zone of peace. Something that we do need to discuss bilaterally and urgently relates to the repatriation of 78 Venezuelans abducted in the United States who have been separated from their families by a cruel and racist policy. Children cannot be used as hostages to extort Venezuela. President, what right does the United States have to militarize the Caribbean region? None. What right does the United States have to execute civilians that are entitled to the presumption of innocence and to due process? None. What right does the United States have to terrorize and deprive humble fishers from their livelihoods around the Caribbean region? None. The United States believes that the Caribbean belongs to it, because for more than 100 years it has been applying the voracious Monroe Doctrine, which is no more than a relic of colonialism. Our region has had first-hand experience of U.S. invasions. Throughout its 250-year history, the United States has only had 4 years of peace. And today it stands ready to set the Caribbean ablaze to uphold its ideology of endless war that its own people is rejecting. The United States promotes endless war with a machine of propaganda and a true industry of death and lies. Many people have been the victims of this at some time or other, of its greed at some time or other. How many deaths will have to happen? How many years will have to pass before the entire world understands, as it has done historically, that today the United States is lying once again? Venezuela, for its part, has a profound tradition of peace. Since its independence more than 2 centuries ago, it has never been involved in an international conflict, and it is proud of this history. We do not need, nor do we seek, war against anyone. President, in light of all of this, we believe that the time has come for this Security Council to fulfill the mandate entrusted to it by the United Nations Charter and to avert a catastrophe that could destabilize the region for generations. Therefore, we propose the following 3 specific measures to this Council. Firstly, that the Council determine the existence of a threat to international peace and security due to the current military escalation by the United States in the Caribbean. Second, that the Council adopt the necessary measures to avoid the situation on the ground worsening further. And third, that the Council adopt a resolution in which all of its members, including the United States, commit to respecting the sovereignty, independence, and territorial integrity of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela. We are just asking for compliance with the Charter of the United Nations that we all committed to in this Security Council. Taking these measures would be a guarantee to immediately diffuse the threat in our region. We all need peace, including the United States. President, before concluding, allow me to address a few words to our people who at this time are living in perfect peace, united and mobilized in the face of the dangers confronting our homeland. At this critical juncture for our history, all Venezuelans remember our grandparents, our great-grandparents, and all of those who fought to maintain a country in peace with prosperity and, above all, with dignity. Venezuelans are proud of being Venezuelans. We don't seek tutelage from any empire. With great sacrifice, we have forged a country which is not subordinated to anyone. We aspire to have friendly, cooperative relations with the entire world based on mutual respect. But we will not accept insults or threats from anyone. Venezuelans do not yield to blackmail. Those who confuse our readiness for dialogue with weakness are mistaken. In our more than 200 years of history, if anyone believes that they can crush us because we are a small country, they should look back to the past and see that Venezuela was the grave of an empire. The Charter of the United Nations and the doctrine of universal peace protects Venezuela and all countries around the world. As guaranteed by Article 51 of the Charter, if Venezuela is attacked, it will then exercise its legitimate right to self-defense. We respect the United States. We respect its people who desire peace. But we warn the world that if the United States were to attack Venezuela and its people, if the United States were to profane our territory, we have the sacred duty to defend what is ours, what we have inherited from our ancestors, and that we safeguard for our children and our grandchildren. Venezuela is ours. It is not the United States. We are sure that the world will understand that in the face of an attack, we will exercise with all of the strength and the love of our homeland our right to self-defense, and even if this struggle takes generations, we will prevail. Venezuela will continue to win peace, exercising its full sovereignty and guaranteeing the right to life. Thank you very much, President.
I thank the representative of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela for his statement. I now give the floor to the United States, who has requested the floor to make an additional statement.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I also want to be clear that the U.S. is in no way against the people of Venezuela, who we believe have the right to be represented by a legitimate government. The plain reality of the situation is that Nicolas Maduro is the leader of a designated narco-terrorist group, Cartel de los Salas, and he is responsible for trafficking drugs into the United States and Europe. Maduro, currently indicted by my country, has corrupted Venezuela's institutions to assist the cartel's criminal narco-trafficking scheme into the United States. It is the action and policies of his illegitimate regime that pose an extraordinary threat to both the region and the national security of the United States. Thank you, sir.
I thank the representative of the United States for his further statement. I now give the floor to the representative of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela to make a further statement.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. What has just happened is specifically an example of the statement that I just gave. We've seen some accusations against our president without any evidence. We never seen a shred of evidence. These accusations against all of our armed forces, against all of our people, declaring that there's an invasion, that they're a threat, without any evidence. This is the problem of the arrogance of powers when they think that we have to be subordinated to them, because they think that we don't have the ability to defend our rights. We are here to defend our rights, to defend truth. We are here to defend our authorities, our people, and our presence at the United Nations. It's very important for everyone to not repeat the past when we've accused other countries of weapons of mass destruction, chemical weapons, or any barbarity simply as a pretext to launch a war, which then it is discovered was simply built on a fallacy. Let us not fall into that trap once again. Let us learn from history. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
The Trump administration is on the offensive against drug cartels and drug trafficking into the United States. President Trump has been very clear he is going to use the full power of America and the full might of the United States to take on and eradicate these drug cartels, no matter where they're operating from, and no matter how long they've been able to act with impunity. President Trump has also made very clear he's not going to allow the United States to continue to be flooded with cocaine and fentanyl and other drugs coming from different places, including Venezuela, which is a common route. We are going to put an end to the drug cartels that are flooding American streets with their product and killing Americans. The United States has designated Tren de Aragua and Cartel de los Salas as terrorist groups, which is what they are. When you flood American streets with drugs, you are terrorizing America, and that is going to end. Mr. President, let me be clear. The cartels carrying out this assault against our citizens are armed, well-organized, and violent. They have financial means, technical sophistication, and extensive paramilitary capabilities. They are bringing death and destruction to Americans. Therefore, President Trump determined these cartels are non-state armed groups, designated them as terrorist organizations, and determined their actions constitute an armed attack against the United States. Friendly foreign nations have made significant efforts to combat these terrorist organizations and have suffered significant loss of life as a result. The United States has reached a critical point where we must use force in self-defense and defense of others. Based on the cumulative effect of these hostile acts against the citizens and interests of the United States and friendly foreign nations, President Trump has determined the United States is in a non-international armed conflict and has directed the Department of War to conduct operations against them pursuant to the law of armed conflict and consistent with Article 51 of the UN Charter. Although these strikes have been limited in scope, U.S. forces remain postured to carry out military operations as necessary to prevent further deaths or injury to American citizens by eliminating the threat. Mr. President, let me stress, the United States does not recognize Nicolas Maduro or his cronies as the government of Venezuela. Nicolas Maduro is a fugitive from American justice and the head of the vicious narco-terrorist cartel de los Salos. Moreover, it is the action and policies of the illegitimate Maduro regime that pose an extraordinary threat to both the region and the national security of the United States. We appreciate the countries in the Western Hemisphere that have heeded our call to designate Tren de Aragua and Cartel de los Salos as terrorist groups, recognizing the threat they pose to the entire region. To iterate, the United States will not waver in our action to protect Americans from narco-terrorists.